Welcome to another deep dive. We're headed to Chengdu, China today.
Yeah, we've got a whole bunch of travel articles and, even some blogs, some history books, all sorts of stuff about Chengdu.
That's exciting.
I think so. So, pandas, hot pots, temples, those night markets. Have you ever looked into Chengdu much?
I've always been fascinated by it, but I've never had the chance to really dive in.
Well, that's what we're here for, right? Our mission is to, we're going to go through all this and see if we can dig out some of those hidden gems, give people a little taste of what Chengdu's really all about.
Sounds like a plan.
So right off the bat, one thing that jumped out at me was it seems like every other source calls Chengdu the land of abundance.
Huh. The land of abundance. Interesting.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, I was just looking at this history of Sichuan cuisine, and it talks about how, the fertile land and the climate there have always, played a huge role in shaping the region's identity. So we're not just talking about, a variety of experiences, but an actual abundance of resources and history.
Exactly. Yeah. It seems like it goes way beyond just the surface.
And speaking of abundance, I got to ask about the hot pot. I'm seeing it everywhere. What's the deal with Chengdu hot pot?
Well, it's, it's an experience. It's not just a meal.
Oh, that's so.
Well, Chengdu hot pot, it's famous for its use of Sichuan peppercorns, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So it creates that signature mala taste. It's numbing and spicy, kind of intense.
I've heard about this.
Yeah, it's really something else.
Okay, I think I might be up for the challenge.
Oh, you gotta try it.
All right, before we get too hungry, though, we gotta talk about the pandas, right?
Of course, the pandas.
Everyone's talking about the Chengdu research base of giant panda breeding.
It's a must visit.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what's amazing? It's not just about seeing the pandas, which is, obviously incredible, but they're doing some really important work there. I was reading about their conservation efforts, and they're leading the way in protecting these endangered animals.
So it's you get to see these adorable creatures A&D contribute to a good cause.
Exactly. Their breeding program has been incredibly successful. Really inspiring.
Okay, I'm sold. Pandas are on the list. Now, switching gears a little bit, I'm also seeing a lot about Chengdu's connection to ancient China. What's the story with the Wuhou Shrine and Jinli Ancient Street?
Ah, yes. They're right next to each other, which is really interesting.
Those is that.
Because it's like you're stepping through different periods of history.
I'll explain that.
So the Wuhou Shrine commemorates the Three Kingdoms era.
Okay.
And then you walk right out into Jinli Ancient Street, and it's this beautifully preserved example of architecture from the Qing Dynasty.
So you go from epic battles and intrigue
to, a more recent but equally significant part of Chengdu's story.
So we've got ancient history, pandas, spicy food. What about modern Chengdu? What about the city today?
Oh, it's vibrant. The nightlife, especially.
Yeah.
I was reading about how Chengdu just effortlessly blends, the old and the new.
Give me an example.
Well, you have these traditional tea houses where you can experience a real tea ceremony. And then, just around the corner, you'll find, a super modern bar or club.
So you get the best of both worlds.
Exactly. It's really cool.
All right, so we've got history, nightlife, pandas, hot pot. What about nature? Can you get away from the city at all?
Oh, absolutely. Mount Qingcheng, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. That seems to be the place to go.
Okay, and what's there?
Well, I was reading this blog, and they were talking about a specific spot along the main hiking trail, the Shenggang Temple.
Okay, so it's like a hike with a historical, maybe even spiritual element.
Yeah, and apparently the view from there is incredible. Breathtaking, they said.
All right. Starting to see why they call it the land of abundance. What about temples? I'm seeing Wenshu Monastery and Daci Temple mentioned a few times. Anything special about those?
They're very different, actually. Wenshu Monastery is, it's known for its peaceful atmosphere, beautiful gardens. But what caught my eye was that it also has a traditional tea house and a vegetarian restaurant.
Really?
Yeah, they serve authentic Buddhist cuisine.
Okay, so you can, find your Zen A&D, have a delicious meal.
Exactly.
I like it. What about Daci Temple?
Daci Temple, that one's all about grandeur and architecture. It dates back to the Tang Dynasty.
Wow.
Yeah, and the carvings and the halls they're breathtaking.
Okay, this is all fascinating, but I have to admit I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. Planning a trip to Chengdu seems complicated.
Well, actually, one of the travel blogs recommends using the metro system to get around.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah, it's clean, it's affordable, And it covers pretty much all the main attractions.
Okay, good tip. So we've got food, pandas, history, temples, even transportation. Anything else we absolutely need to know about Chengdu?
One thing that I noticed, actually, a lot of the sources mention it, was Chinese currency.
Oh, right, of course.
Yeah, and tipping customs. That's different.
How so?
Well, it seems like tipping, like, it's not really expected in Chengdu.
Oh, interesting. So, like, if I'm used to tipping, I should be careful.
Yeah, you don't want to, accidentally offend anyone.
Right, good point. Always good to be mindful of those cultural differences.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, we haven't really talked about the language barrier. Is that a big issue for English speakers?
It can be tricky, yeah. Like, you'll find English signs at the major tourist spots, but once you get beyond that...
Might get tough.
Yeah, might need to get a little creative.
Okay, what do you recommend?
Well, this blog I was reading, they suggested, like, using a translation app. Or, even learning a few basic Mandarin phrases.
Oh, yeah. That's always a good idea, even if it's just hello and thank you.
Exactly. It goes a long way.
All right, so we've got our translation app ready, but I'm still a little worried about things like, ordering food.
Oh, like the hot pot?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what if I can't even read the menu?
Don't worry. Apparently, a lot of the hot pot places, they have picture menus.
Oh, that's helpful.
Yeah, so you can just, point and hope for the best.
Boy, you like that strategy. A little bit of adventure in there.
Exactly. Makes it more fun, right?
All right. Circling back to nightlife for a sec. We talked about tea houses and clubs, but what about live music? Is there a scene in Chengdu?
Oh, definitely. One of the articles mentioned this area called Yulin Road. It's known for its indie music venues, like kind of an underground scene.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, seems like the place to be if you want to hear some local talent.
Sounds right up my alley. Now, I also remember reading something about Sichuan Opera. What exactly is that?
Think of it like it's a mix of music and dance and acrobatics and storytelling.
Okay, and what makes it Sichuan Opera?
Well, they have this incredible thing called Bayan Lin Lin,
which is
face changing. The performers, they change masks so quickly, sometimes within seconds. It's like magic.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Okay, where can you see this?
There are a few theaters, but the one that everyone seems to recommend is the Shufeng Yayun Sichuan Opera House.
Got it. So ancient temples, bustling markets, pandas, spicy food, now opera with like magic face changing.
Chengdu's got it all.
It really does. It's like sensory overload in the best way possible. But speaking of senses, let's get back to those green spaces we talked about. People's Park and Huanhuaxi Park.
Oh, yeah. Two very different ways to experience nature in the city.
So People's Park, it seemed like that was all about like immersing yourself in local life.
Right, exactly. It's like a microcosm of Chengdu.
And what was that? I read about ear cleaning.
Oh, yeah.
It's a thing there. Really? Like out in the open.
Yeah, apparently they have these skilled ear cleaners who use these special tools.
I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, it's like a social activity almost.
Wow, okay, definitely added that to the itinerary. What about Huanhuaxi Park? That seemed a little more tranquil.
Yeah, definitely more peaceful, lots of gardens, lakes, pathways. And they have the Chengdu Botanical Garden there too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, huge collection of plants from all over the world.
So you can go from like the hustle and bustle of People's Park to this like global oasis.
Exactly.
Amazing. All right, so we've talked a lot about what to do and see in Chengdu, but what about the logistics of getting there?
Right, the practical stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like visas, currency, transportation.
Okay, so visas, most travelers are going to need one to enter China. And the sources all recommend applying well in advance because it can take a while.
Okay, good to know. What about exchanging currency?
Best to do it once you arrive in Chengdu. There are plenty of banks and exchange bureaus at the airport and around the city.
Okay, good to know. And we already talked about the metro. Any other transportation options?
Taxis are everywhere, but just make sure they use the meter.
Right, avoid those inflated tourist prices.
Exactly. And ride-hailing apps like Didi Chuxing, they're really popular in Chengdu.
Oh, cool. So getting around shouldn't be too much of a hassle.
Nope, it seems pretty straightforward.
All right, before we move on, any local customs or etiquette tips that we should be aware of?
Ah, yeah, good point. One thing that stood out to me was this concept of mianzi. It's like face in Chinese culture.
Okay, and what does that mean exactly?
Well, it's about maintaining social harmony, avoiding causing embarrassment or loss of face for yourself or others.
So like being respectful, being mindful of our actions.
Exactly.
Can you give me some examples?
Sure. Like, when someone gives you a business card, you should accept it with both hands.
Oh, okay.
And, take a moment to look at it before you put it away.
Gotcha. Anything else?
Yeah, like, avoid raising your voice or showing anger in public. That can be seen as a loss of face.
Okay, makes sense. It's those little things that can make a big difference when you're traveling.
Absolutely. They show respect for the local culture.
All right, so we've covered customs, transportation, but I think it's time to get back to the food.
Always a good idea.
We talked about hot pot, but what else is Chengdu known for in terms of like culinary delights?
Well, beyond the Sichuan cuisine, there's a whole street food scene.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was reading about this dish called dan dan mian.
What's that?
It's a spicy noodle dish with minced pork and preserved vegetables.
Sounds delicious.
It is, apparently.
Are there any like specific areas known for street food?
Well, Jinli Ancient Street, the one we talked about earlier, that's a good spot.
Oh, okay.
But for more local experience, I was reading that the Wenshu Monastery area is great for street food.
All right, so we've got ancient temples, peaceful parks, Pandas, Hot Pot, Sichuan Opera, nightlife, A&D, incredible street food.
Chengdu's got it all.
The land of abundance, for sure. It really does. But there's one more thing I want to touch on before we wrap things up.
Yeah, the street art scene.
Oh, yeah. Street art. That's right. I saw that in a couple of our sources. What do you find out about that?
Well, it seems like it's, more than just murals and graffiti.
Right.
It's like there's a real sense of community and cultural expression woven into it.
Interesting. I remember reading about this place called, like, The Loft.
Oh, yeah, The Loft. It's this old factory complex that they've turned into a hub for, artists and musicians and all kinds of creatives.
So it's like a hidden gem within a hidden gem.
Exactly. And you can, wander through the studios, see the artwork. Sometimes they even have, live performances.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's really cool.
Okay, so we've got The Loft on the list. Anything else about the street art stand out to you?
Yeah, what I thought was interesting was how it reflects the city's history and heritage.
Oh, how so?
Well, there are murals that depict scenes from the Three Kingdoms era,
Mm-hmm.
and then some more modern takes on those traditional Sichuan opera masks.
Always that blend of old and new, huh?
Yeah, it's everywhere in Chengdu.
It really does seem like the city itself is like a living, breathing work of art.
I love that.
Now, speaking of art, we can't forget about the Fu Thatched Cottage.
Oh, right, yeah. We touched on it earlier.
It's easy to get swept up in the Pandas and the Hot Pot,
Yeah, totally.
But Chengdu also has these quiet, peaceful places, too.
Exactly. And the Fu Thatched Cottage is a perfect example. It was the home of Du Fu, one of China's most famous poets.
Right.
And now it's a museum and garden.
Dedicated to his life and work.
Yep.
I read that it's surrounded by plum trees, and in the spring, they all bloom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, sounds pretty magical.
It does.
All right, so Pandas, Hot Pot, ancient temples, bustling markets, quiet gardens, nightlife, art.
And street food.
Oh, yeah, and street food. I think it's safe to say Chengdu earns that land of abundance nickname.
For sure.
It really does offer something for everyone, whether you're into history, food, nature, art.
Whatever you're looking for, you can find it in Chengdu.
But as we wrap up our deep dive today, I want to go back to that idea of a sensory journey. It's not just about what you see or do, but how it makes you feel.
Totally. It's like the aroma of those Sichuan peppercorns, as you're walking through the market, or that feeling of awe when you're standing in front of an ancient temple.
Yeah. Or sharing a hot pot with friends, discovering a hidden alleyway with amazing street art.
It's about immersing yourself in a culture that's both ancient and modern, vibrant and serene.
Familiar and surprising all at the same time.
Yeah, it's about experiencing Chengdu with all your senses.
Letting it captivate you with its energy and its history. So to everyone listening, we encourage you. Go beyond those typical tourist spots. Explore those hidden gems. Embrace the unexpected.
Let Chengdu be your guide on a sensory journey unlike any other.
Happy travels, everyone, and until next time, keep diving deep.